I just realized something. The Olympics are over, aren't they? I don't even remember when they started. I know they were in China, but I don't know who won the most medals. I don't know if there were any big upsets or gaffes. They barely even register on my radar as a notable event that recently happened. The only thing I do recall is the Big Air Shojang meme, which was when this picture went viral on social media. China had constructed its artificial ski run in an industrial park, and the contrast between the fake white slope and what looks like a brown and bloom post-apocalyptic Fallout hellscape in the background blew pretty much everybody away. This is what the Olympics have been reduced to. I remember, not long ago, people actually cared about these games. Even people who didn't like sports too much, people like me for example, might feel a twinge of national pride when their country claims another medal. And not caring about the Olympics is a relatively new phenomenon, rather than being a product of the cynicism of the 90s, like it usually is. Even up to about a decade ago, I remember the Olympics as an event that had the power to unite people under the banner of sportsmanship, goodwill, and fair play. But now nobody cares. They are a rusted out husk of their former glory, which is what makes this picture so appropriate. There's no reason for me to go into any of the minor Olympic scandals because it just doesn't matter. The Olympics, now more than ever, are just another avenue where nations can make propaganda moves to advance their interests. During the games, though, Twitter fed me this little piece of bullshit. The Western powers tried and failed to discredit the Beijing Winter Olympics. In fact, the games were a runaway success, symbolizing peace, international friendship, and solidarity. They were also the greenest Olympics in history. That has to be fake, considering how much fake snow they moved around, and a model of COVID management. Twitter, what gave you the thought that I would ever want to see something like this? Truthfully, nobody wants to see this, but this tweet was nonetheless promoted to a lot of people. Not as a paid advertisement, which Twitter marks with a promoted tag, but under the much more benign "you might like" tag. Of course, there's no reason that I or anybody else fed this nonsense would actually like it. We didn't click on Olympic tweets or Chinese tweets or controversy tweets. Twitter thought we might like it because Twitter wants us to like it. It's as simple as that. The trending tab on pretty much every single social media platform is absolutely useless. Twitter's most of all, but that's not because it's all just astroturfed, pre-purchased garbage. That is part of it though, of course. If a new movie or TV show comes out, especially if it's Disney or Cape shit, expect it to be right at the top of the trending tab, whether or not it actually deserves it, complete with a special hashtag emoji. These things are emojis that Twitter automatically posts, attached to a given hashtag. Generally, companies will buy hashtags with emojis for promotional purposes, in order to make their product look special. Whenever I see one of these, I just cringe. It makes me think that somebody out there thought it was a good idea to drop a big bag of cash so Twitter can look even more annoying. Oh, and also, guess what? The only hashtag emoji that is permanent is the Black Lives Matter one, and according to Twitter's back end, it's not set to expire until the year 3000. I guess it truly is a 1,000-year Reich. What the trending tab should be is a list of the most common words currently being tweeted, removing, of course, stuff like the or a or I, and sometimes we do actually get that. The recent Destiny drama blew up primarily on Twitter, and so the word Destiny was trending for several days. Vosh trends on Twitter almost weekly at this point, because that's about how often he says something so majorly dumb that it causes an internet kerfuffle. And when there's real news, like the Ukraine-Russia war, that often dominates the trending tab too. But then you start to notice some weird stuff. Like, okay, right now, Ayato is trending because of a Genshin Impact thing. I don't know, I don't play the Chinese spyware game, you fucking degenerates. But Ayato is trending with 151,000 tweets right now. And at the same time, Roger Stone is trending with only 7,000 tweets. Considering Twitter's size, is 7,000 tweets really trending? Well, if you click on that trend, you'll see why it's being pushed. It's a January 6th Capitol riot thing. Of course. Now, I'm not quite saying that Twitter deliberately boosts topics to fit a political bias. I think that's probably actually not the case. Not because Twitter isn't biased, they clearly are, but because I don't think they have the time to manually police every tweet on the platform. If they did, they would have handled all the child porn by now. My guess is they're flagging certain accounts, maybe those with that verification mark, maybe not, as having more weight in the what trends algorithm. So let's say 50,000 normies tweet about something and that might cause a trend, while you only need 5,000 trend-friendly accounts to do the same thing. That seems to explain this behavior more than any kind of centralized push from Twitter. But at the same time, if this is how it works, Twitter knows what they're doing when they're giving certain accounts this power. But that's the only reason I can think of as to why some of these trends are so low. Ron Perlman with 7,000 tweets. Did he even do anything recently? Jon Stewart with 4,000. Frankly, the only thing I've seen that old fossil appear on in the last year is Adam and Sitch's Sunday show. And Streets of Rage is tweeting without even a number. In fact, when I clicked on this for the video, the term Streets of Rage might have been used 100 times on Twitter in the past 12 hours, mostly in reference to the upcoming Streets of Rage 4 game. I don't believe this is an actual trend, it's probably one of those paid spots. Also, just in case you're getting your hopes up, Streets of Rage 4 is a mobile game. Sorry. Yes, I have been deliberately avoiding the elephant in the room, sitting on the edges of all of these screenshots. It's the Will Smith thing. Alright, just in case you haven't heard, check it out.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay.
I don't want to dwell too much on this because just like the Olympics, I don't actually care about celeb shit. I don't care about the Oscars. I didn't even know the Oscars were happening until this event went viral. I don't know anybody else who was following the Oscars either, at least until the How Can He Slap event. The prevailing narrative about it is that Chris Rock told a joke about Will Smith's wife's baldness by referring to G.I. Jane 2. Then Will just Chad walked up, smacked him in the mouth, and then proceeded to yell at him from his seat. Everybody online right now is making this about ableism, about black-on-black violence, about toxic masculinity. Everybody is filtering this through their own political lens. Everybody's reaching, and it's fucking cringe. I know you retards think that everything is actually political, but it's not. Stop trying to fit it all into a box. This is 100% a personal situation, and everybody else is wrong about it. Listen closely again, and watch the body language of those involved. Look, Chris Rock makes a bald joke. Will's laughing it off, but Jada looks angry. Chris sees that she's annoyed and says,
That was a nice one, okay.
He's clearly insinuating that the bald joke was him pulling punches, and if he wanted to really piss her off, he'd joke about her cucking him, and the resulting shit show around that. And in case you didn't know, that's a thing too.
Started I think it was about 4 years ago, started a friendship with August. And we actually became really, really good friends. And it all started with him just needing some help, you know, me wanting to help his health, his mental state. And we found all those different resources, you know, to help pull him through. You know, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement.
I think you need to say clearly what happened.
And I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship, absolutely.
Now I got to be with you at the press conference while you tell the world about your transgressions.
Well,
Like, I love my baby. I'm gonna stand by my baby no matter what.
no, I definitely understand why it would look that way or feel that way, but I actually don't look at it as a transgression at all. Through that particular journey, I learned so much about myself and was able to really confront a lot of emotional immaturity, emotional insecurity, and I was really able to do some really deep healing.
This is why I don't think the event was staged to get more eyes in the Oscars. It's also why I don't think it was about the bald thing or the ableism or whatever else. It's simply a personal matter. But because it's juicy drama, people keep digging up alternate angles or behind-the-scenes footage or pointing out how hypocritical it is for Hollywood to think about coming down on Will Smith when most of them take regular trips out to Epstein's Island. Like I said, I'm not here to discuss this event specifically. There's no analysis to be had. There's nothing to talk about. It's simply what the Boondocks described years ago.
Watch where you walking, nigga. Hey, what you say, nigga?
Watch closely. You're about to experience a nigga moment. Webster defines the nigga moment as a moment when ignorance overwhelms the mind of an otherwise logical Negro male,
What did you say, bitch, nigga? Hey, squeeze it, nigga.
causing him to act in an illogical, self-destructive manner, i.e., like a nigga.
I will say though, it is damn funny to see that Chris Rock has the fear of God slapped into him. The point I'm making is, this event was trending because it was an event that happened, but not because it's substantive. Of course it would be trending. The Oscars are peak establishment. It's the wealthy huffing their own farts and thinking that us plebs actually care to watch them. Any excuse to put them on that trending tab will do. Even if nothing happened at the Oscars, even if it was the most boring show possible, it would still be there. The last time I cared about any of this was when Ricky Gervais hosted the Golden Globes and told them all to their faces exactly what they were. You know this famous Red Letter Media clip, right?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
It's been way too overused at this point, as much as I love it. But it applies not only to Marvel and Disney and Star Trek. It applies not only to entertainment. It applies to culture, to politics, to philosophy. That's the point of the NPC meme, that people are receiving their prescribed wisdom from their smartphones or computers, and that it's been pre-packaged in just such a way that they don't need to actually think about what positions they're adopting. It's a one-size-fits-all mentality, but for what you believe is true about the world. A Markov chain is a model of probability that describes a sequence of possible events, in which the chance each event happens depends solely on the state of the previous event, and no other factors. Here's a great example. A board game that relies solely on dice for moves, like for example Snakes and Ladders, is a Markov chain. On each turn of Snakes and Ladders, the only thing that matters is the current state of the board and your roll of the dice. Your chances of getting a specific roll are the same every turn. Compare that to a card game where cards are continuously discarded from the deck, like in blackjack. In a game like this, as you play through the deck, options within the deck are removed from play, changing the chances that you will get a specific card each turn. In this example, Snakes and Ladders is a Markov chain, but blackjack isn't, because previous turns do not affect the probability of the dice roll in Snakes and Ladders, but previous draws do affect the probability of the next draw in blackjack. Have you ever noticed that when you're talking to somebody who is entirely ideological, the responses coming out of their mouth, everything that they say, every answer that they give you, is identical to every other person who believes the same thing? This is because their thought patterns move like a Markov chain. They always give the same output, regardless of reality, because it is being filtered down through the same lens. For example, Jordan Peterson famously demonstrated this effect when being interviewed by a feminist a few years ago.
I'm married. Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it. I do also think it is a patriarchal institution. It is literally...
Of course you think that.
Well,
because you think virtually everything that occurs in our society is a patriarchal institution. And it's easy to think that because then you only have to think one thing. You have a one thing answer for everything.
You could let
it's like
me...
It's part of the patriarchal institution. You know, the part of the problem too is with this sort of discussion is that it's... And this is why I consider it a manifestation of ideological possession. It's predictable.
Well, that's what...
knowing your stance on...
But having a coherent ideology does mean that it is predictable, because
you don't need an ideology.
It is one logical thing that flows from another, and all those pieces tessellate together. So what I find very interesting about your thinking, I find it quite slightly baffling, is that I don't really see how all the pieces fit together.
And you know, the idea that something should be consistent. You were talking about the necessity for consistency in ideology. It's like, I'm not hearing what you think. I'm hearing how you're able to represent the ideology you were taught. And it's not that interesting because I don't know anything about you. I could replace you with someone else who thinks the same way. And that means you're not here. That's what it means. It's not pleasant. So you're not integrating the specifics of your personal experience with what you've been taught to synthesize something that's genuine and surprising and engaging in a narrative sense as a consequence. And that's the pathology of ideological possession. It's not good. And it's not good that I know where you stand on things. Once I know a few things, it's like, why have a conversation? I already know where you stand on things.
I bet you don't know where I stand on all things.
I would hope that was true.
Okay, let's talk about transgender issues. That's fun. What do you think I think about transgender issues?
I suspect that you think that gender expression, gender identity are fundamentally social constructs, but I could be wrong.
No, I believe that there are definitely some biological differences between the sexes. We've observed them. I do believe that gender is a hugely powerful social structure that we've built on top of that it is largely, but not entirely, socially constructed.
Notice how he predicted exactly what she would say. She then said, no, I'm not going to say that, and then admitted that everything he said was actually correct about her. Once you understand what lens they are filtering everything through, you can completely predict what they're going to say. You don't even need to ask them the question anymore. Simply run the input through the lens, and you will get the same answer every time. Of course, rightoids do this too. Libertarians and ANCAPs and conservatives all have their own Markov chain thoughts. It's not a product of any one ideology, rather it's a product of ideological thinking. A libertarian will always ask their internal processes some key questions. How is the state at fault? How did regulation cause this problem? And then spit out an ideological answer, which may or may not be accurate to reality. A socialist will do the same thing. How does this relate to class conflict? How are the means of production affected? Talk to enough ideologues, and you'll find that once you've picked up their source code, you can run any variable through it that you want, and generate the exact same answers that they would give you in a conversation. I made a video a while ago, I think it was an E3 video, but I can't remember which year, where I made the point that we build institutions in order to capture and properly express virtues in society. For example, school is a place of higher learning. The Olympics are to display the best of human athleticism. The Oscars for exemplary acting. But the point I made in that video is that the world is not a fixed place, and that the location of these virtues may shift over time. You can make a decent argument, though not as solid as most rightoids believe, that academia has become corrupted. That doesn't mean that the virtue of learning is gone from the world, but that the virtue of learning must be found in a place outside of that old institution sometimes. An old institution may have had a purpose, but if the location of the virtue shifts, then that institution will also change into a self-perpetuating bureaucracy that only exists on the back of its previous reputation. And that will eventually run out of steam. That's why all this stuff feels hollow. The Olympics, the Oscars, the trending tab that they're in that pushes heaps of worthless nothingness in front of your eyes. Every show or movie or video game claiming to have broken new ground. Every event demanding not only your attention, but your public expression of care. Every notable individual who comes out of the closet as a member of this week's Prague protected class. All of it feels like it demands your brain space, and that there's something wrong with you if you don't give it up willingly and publicly. There's something damaged about you if you don't play the game. You are required not only to care, but to emote to others that you do. And yes, although I do think that all sides of politics can do this, right now, it's the left that is co-opting this tendency for their own ends. After all, everything's political, everything is a matter of the public, everything's a virtue signal, every moment is an opportunity to show to wider society that you are on the right side of history. It feels like an entire generation of people have inherited something potentially great, something that they have no idea what to do with, or how to continue building on it, and so they've resorted to cannibalizing it in order to further their own ends. Grand plans always come with an obsession with wiping clean the old, and reordering things according to a rationalism that those in power fervently believe is objective, even though it's not. And it's not just the culture that gets reordered, but the minds of the people who live within it. No surprise that when this guy said on Reddit a few years back he was tired of being told that he had to care about everything, the replies he got were decrying him for his privilege and saying that he is part of the problem for even feeling fatigued. But you know what? Fine. I'll be part of the problem. I don't care. I don't care about any of this, and I'm tired of pretending that I do. Or rather, I was tired of pretending. I've been open about not caring for years now. Why do you think that the terminally invested call me a Nazi? Because if everything is political, and if their grand plan requires everyone to be involved, otherwise, it's not real socialism, simply saying no means that you are fundamentally on the wrong side of history. Even if that no means that you just want to shut out the noise and the god-awful cancer of the outside world for just a minute. Even if it means that you just want to log the fuck off for a while. But like that Reddit post shows, the who cares mentality is spreading. And frankly, that's a trend I can get behind. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote about this and a billion other things like 2,000 years ago. You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. These things are not asking to be judged by you. Leave them alone. It is tyrants and totalitarians that say everything is political, that want to force you to care, that exclaim that you are not properly buying into society, and therefore are a reactionary if you're not always on and always emoting. To them, everything is political because they view your brain as political, and they want to conquer it like they want to conquer every other domain of politics. I'm not saying don't care about anything like an edgelord. I'm saying reserve your care for things that you genuinely care about. Quit the performative garbage. You don't have to agree with me politically. In fact, it probably works better if you don't, because I'm not asking you to regurgitate what I say like you're going down a Markov chain. I'm saying your conscience knows what to focus on, and that's going to be unique to each person, so focus on it. Forget about all this other junk. Do what actually matters.